Alright guys, today we're going to be putting together this knife kit. We'll start off by taking one of the sides and making sure that the shiny part is facing outside, and that's just for aesthetics. Then we'll take our axle and put it through the axle hole. Then we'll put our first blade into place. Next we'll put the pins into their holes, and then we'll talk about the spring. And the spring is probably the most difficult part of putting this knife together, because in order for the knife to work, the spring needs to be in tension or compression, one of the two. I found that the easiest way to put this knife together is to lay the blade over top of the spring and then grab a pair of pliers and stretch it into that notch that the knife has. And it takes a little bit of practice, but you'll get it down eventually. And I'm using pliers, and that can scratch up the metal, but that's nothing that some sandpaper and a buffing wheel can't fix. The next step is taking our spacer, loading that into place, and then we'll pretty much repeat the same process for the next blade. We'll double check and make sure that the knife action works and move on to the next blade. Now that both blades are into place, we get to close up the knife with our final side. And again, the shiny part should be facing out. If you can't do this, then that means you started out with the first side facing the wrong way. So you could either start all over, or you could just buff it out and make it look shiny. And in preparation for our next step, I'm trying to make sure that the pins are evenly spaced out so that the same amount of pin is sticking out of each side. Now we're going to pin each pin into place. That'll lock our knife together so that it can't be taken apart or come loose. So we'll just gently roll over each pin and try to make it flush with the side of the knife. It won't be completely flush, but we'll fix that problem when we're making the scales. Now this is what those pins should look like once we're done. We can see that the knife action still works. I don't think you could overpeen these to where you wouldn't be able to open the knife, but it's always good to check and make sure that our knife is working throughout the process. Now our axle is a little bit too long, and I think that's because I didn't use any of the washers or spacers. I'm not really sure what I should have used those for, but I didn't use them and the knife turned out fine. If you do know where they should be used, feel free to drop it down in the comments. But I just ground it flat. There are some scratches, but again, that's nothing that some sandpaper and a buffing wheel can't fix. Now I tossed that last screw into our axle and check the knife action one more time. We're working great. Now I'm just going to make a quick set of scales. This video isn't really about how to make scales, so I won't go super in depth, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. Now if we were to try to glue these scales directly onto the knife, there would be gaps in between the scales and the sides, and that's because the pins are sticking out. So instead of grinding those pins flat, we're going to carve little cavities in each of the scales to account for the pins. That way we don't have to grind off the pins, and the scales will sit nice and flush against the sides of the knife. And off camera, I drilled some holes and countersank them so that the screws included in the kit can be screwed in through the scales and secure them if the super glue hasn't already done that. And that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. Thanks.